Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam amma ba'd. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for another lesson of the 77 branches of faith. And let us all make the intention that we are learning the deen so that we could practice this and convey the message to others, inshallah. We completed fulfilling the rights of our parents and those who are under us, fulfilling the rights of those who are under our care and providing comfort to our parents as the last two branches of faith that we mentioned last week. And I want everybody to pay special attention to the first branch of this week's lesson, branch number 57, to rear our children in a proper manner. As a Muslim parent, we have a duty towards our children to set an Islamic example and to create an Islamic environment in our homes. It's very sad, you walk into some Muslim families' homes, the children don't greet salam, they're not dressed appropriately, they're not encouraged to perform their salah, they are encouraged to live Western lives and to adopt Western kind of practices and habits. Brothers and sisters in Islam, we have to create an Islamic ethos in our home. We have to create an Islamic environment in our home. Children need to see parents practicing on deen. As a father, if I want my son to grow up to grow his beard, I need to have a beard. If I want my son to grow up and wear a kurta, I need to be wearing one. If I want my daughter to wear a scarf when she leaves the home, I need to wear a scarf when I leave the home. If I want my children to grow up making salam, I must make salam. In fact, I have a friend who accepted Islam later on in his life, and his mother had a Muslim friend. He says growing up he can't believe, but in retrospect he can clearly remember growing up, and every time his mom would walk into the house, she would say salam house or assalamu alaikum house. Whereas it is a sunnah practice to say assalamu alaikum when you enter the home, to smile, to ask the family how they are, to spend time with your family, to sit down and learn and teach deen and dedicate some time to them, family time. It is very, very important. Another thing that I've mentioned is, as Muslim parents, we need to create, in fact as parents in general, we need to create the environment in our homes where our children must feel comfortable and they must feel safe enough to come and discuss anything with us, no matter how bad they may have faltered and fallen by the wayside. But they must never think that my father will reject me or my mother will throw me away. I'll never forget this, right? And this is where I saw that I'm not doing it right, and I've made specific effort in the direction of fixing this. But my daughter spilled a cup of tea on the entire cup of tea on the carpet. I wasn't there, and she came in the room, and you could see clearly petrified fear on this face. And she says, Abi, I'm so sorry. I made a big mistake. What happened? I spilled my cup of tea. I wanted to start crying because my child felt scared to come and tell me she spilled a cup of tea. It's a normal thing. I, as an adult, spill tea not all the time because I don't drink tea so often, but coffee. I spill coffee all the time. I mess coffee on my clothes. I mess coffee on the counter. But if I mess coffee on my clothes and on the counter, then nobody is there to reprimand me. But if my child messes coffee on the counter or on her clothes, then don't you know I have to wash these clothes? And who's going to wipe this counter clean? As opposed to, my baby, please try to be careful with the coffee because you've messed your clothes now. You do it very often. It leaves stains on your clothes. And they'll be like, okay, Dad. Or, go take the cloth, please, and go and wipe the counter where you messed the coffee. And they've learned their lesson. Now, because your nafs doesn't want to work, next time she'll avoid messing the counter because her nafs wouldn't want to go and pick up the cloth and wipe up after herself. Think about what I'm saying. Why do we create an environment in our homes that even spouses are scared to speak to one another because, oh, this man is going to flip his lid, or the appa's going to throw something at me again, or that finger's going to come out? You know what I'm saying? We need to, as Muslim parents, sit together. And another thing very important, as parents, a husband and wife need to have the same set of rules in the house, and they must never question one another in front of the children, or never object to one another in front of the children. It must never be done in front of the children. You're welcome to disagree. You're welcome to go and discuss it at the later stage, but not in front of the kids. Father reprimands the daughter for being naughty. Mother jumps. Don't shout at my child like that. And she's not a slave. Now the child is learning that mommy's always going to be there to stand up for me. So she's never going to take anything the father says seriously, and vice versa. If every time the mother reprimands, hey, stop it, you're going overboard. You don't have to shout at the kids like that all the time. When you're screaming at them the whole day, stop it. Now, the child is going to realize that, hey, dad's going to be there to stand up for me whenever I do something naughty. This is the problem. So if one parent reprimands the child for something, then you as the other parent must support that. You must listen to your mother and finish, or you must listen to your father, father's spoken, and then finished. Tonight, when the kids are sleeping, or when you're away from the children, then listen, I think you're being very harsh. It's unnecessary. Let's discuss, please, how we're going to do this, because I don't think it was fair what you did, or I don't agree with the way you did it, or I don't agree with what was said in the first place. I don't think what you did was wrong. And you can hash it out and discuss. Okay? So as parents, we need to rear our children in a proper manner, and that is with an Islamic ethos. So ask the simple question: how many of us pray salah in our house? How many of us dress? You go to work, you have to wear your suit and tie, it might be understandable. You go to work, you have to wear your overalls, it might be understandable. But who is stopping us from dressing like Muslims inside our houses? No one. Do we dress like Muslims in our houses? Do we have Islamic habits in our houses? Do we greet salam in our houses? Do we read books of deen and discuss books of deen and aspects of deen in our houses? This is how we're going to rear our children, by example. May Allah grant us tawfiq. Number 58. Not to sever relations with one's friends and relatives. So silatul rahim is a very important aspect of Sharia. It's a very important feature of a believer, to uphold family ties. Now, there are limits to family ties. There are a number of books with regards to family ties, which I'm going to suggest to everybody to try and download. One specific book you can download on ka.org.za. ka.org.za. You go under the link of books, and in there you'll see the book called Family Ties. It's got a very reasonable approach to family ties and what it constitutes, what it means, and how to and what not to, etc. So my brothers and sisters in Islam, it's very important that we uphold family ties, and we uphold relationships with our friends. Remember, it's not, if you've had an argument with a friend, it's normal. You don't have to agree. You can't agree with everybody, but it's normal to have an argument. But that doesn't mean that the argument must lead to a breakdown in the relationship. I've got a friend, for instance, right? I'm not going to say his name, but him and I will sit and fight. We will sit and argue and debate and no, I disagree and all kinds of things. And he picks on Islam all the time. Although he himself is a Muslim, by the way, accepted Islam, but Allah knows best. Very, very shaky. May Allah grant us tawfiq and understanding. And the discussion always ends with, thank you for listening to me. I really appreciate the fact that I could discuss with you. It opens my mind up. It gives me things to think about. It gives me an understanding as to what other people are thinking and how I need to present the message of Islam to the people, because if he's thinking like this, there must be other people who have these same kind of thoughts going through their mind, right? So it's always, although it's it's normally quite, if you have to see us, you'd think we're fighting. It's normally an ugly discussion, right? But it doesn't lead to a breakdown in the relationship and that I'm not going to speak to you anymore because you this and you that and you said this and you said that. No, you need to understand how people are. So if your friends in your company is such that they are drawing you away from the deen and they are becoming an obstacle for you to practice the deen, then you may distance yourself from them, but you don't write them off completely. You don't cut them off completely from your life, unless obviously there is ground. And that book, Family Ties, will show you, will discuss when there are grounds and when there's a reason for you to distance yourself completely from people. All right. So it is part of our faith to uphold family ties. And in fact, there's a very scary hadith that on the day of Qiyamah, the Sirat, that thin bridge going over Jahannam that everybody will have to pass over in order to get to Jannah, there are big hooks, kalalib, on either side. And those who didn't uphold family ties will be ripped off the bridge because of the family ties, because they didn't do it properly. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. There's even a hadith that says family ties holds on to the arsh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah personifies family ties. It's got a physical form and it's clinging to the arsh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it's making dua that, oh Allah, sil man wasalani waqta' man qata'ani, that, oh Allah, you look after whoever looks after me and cut off from your rahmah whoever cuts me off. Think about that. So let us see upholding family ties. Now, husband is abusing his wife, beating his children. She packs her stuff and leaves. Please don't come with a you're breaking family ties story. Brother, you were breaking them first, that's why they left. Do you understand what I'm saying? Or the other way around. The wife is making her husband's life an absolute misery, living hell. He decides to throw the towel in and leave. Now you can't come and say he's breaking family ties. By stopping your partner from seeing his children after, or from seeing her children and fighting custody and withholding children from the parents and what, now you're breaking family ties because you are leading to a breakdown in the parental relationship, the father's relationship with the mother's relationship with the children. So you will be responsible for that. If there are reasonable grounds, sorry, my nose is itching, that's why I'm touching it all the time. I don't know why it's itching. Oh God, I'm just joking, it's not going to be inshallah. I didn't even want to say the word. Just now you say, oh my God, Imam Zakariyya said. So let us ensure that, like I said, unless there's reasonable grounds, like your partner's physically abusive or psychologically abusive, and don't come with a, he's psychologically abusive, he's verbally abusive. Why? Because I said so. You need proper at the Islamic family court that we're affiliated to, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. If somebody ticks the box as grounds for a fasakh, that psychological abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, we ask for a J88 form for the physical abuse, or a psychologist's report, or a social worker's report. If you cannot provide a psychologist, social worker's report, or a J88 for abuse, unfortunately it doesn't constitute grounds. This is why the moment your partner lifts their hands for you, you have a right to go to the police and lay a charge, even in the very least to have record of the fact that you've been abused. And especially the children, don't ever allow your partner to abuse the children. At the first given opportunity, you take their child and you fill in those documents, because we have a duty to protect people and protect our family and our children. However, part of upholding family ties is to ensure that the children have a relationship with both parents. This is why even South African law is very, very particular about that. So let us please not be spiteful. If the relationship has terminated for whatever reason, it's terminated, it's over, water under the bridge. But now to start being spiteful and to play the children up against the parents and to withhold the children from the parents, etc., that is now literally directly proportionate to breaking family ties. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or directly related to, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. Alright. Number 59 is to obey one's master. So now this is in a slave situation where you have a physical slave according to the rules and the definition of slavery in the Sharia, right? I don't want to go into detail on discussion on slavery. It's a very, very detailed discussion. Many books have been written on the subject, especially in light of modern slavery and kidnappings, etc., etc. I don't want to go into that discussion. But in the proper Sharia compliant setup of slavery, then to obey one's master is part of your faith. But I'm going to kind of extend this and expand this discussion a little bit for us. We as employees have a responsibility towards our employers, and we have signed a contract which we are bound by. So if I am bound by my contract, then it is part of faith, it is part of your iman to fulfill that contract, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, إِنَّ الْعَهْدَ كَانَ عَنْهُ مَسْئُولًا. A ahad. Ahad means a promise, an agreement that you've made. You've given your word to somebody that I will be at work XYZ amount of hours, I will do XYZ job. You present yourself, there's no stock to pack, but I was there to pack the stock, then you have fulfilled your responsibility. And if I as an employer have given my employee a contract, I am equally bound, because we've discussed that, to fulfill the rights of those under your care, right? But now to obey one's master is part of our iman, and like I said, to extend that, because the slavery setup is very, very, very contentious at the moment, and are there still legitimate Shari'i slaves and everything and all that kind of a discussion. I don't want to go into that. But in the modern setup where we are technically, I don't want to say enslaved, but we are bound, let's say it that way. We are bound by the contracts that we signed, right? So I need to be honest, I need to be true, I need to be faithful to my employer in terms of the work that I am doing, and in terms of the hours that I must be working, in terms of doing my job. For the record, if I am supposed to be at work from 9 to 5 doing XYZ, I get an hour break for lunch. If I'm sitting at my desk playing games, or I'm making my personal phone calls from the company call, I am breaking my trust. and I'm not entitled to the salary that I earn in that time, because you are cheating your boss in terms of the contract that you've signed. So let us think very, very carefully, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from defaulting in this way. Number 60 is to be just. Now, justice, brothers and sisters, in Islam has been defined. The limits and parameters of justice and the definition thereof have been defined by the Sharia already. And one needs to be just even when I am wrong, I still have to be just. Understand? This is why the ulama say, if your child has been naughty, disobedient, never give your child a hiding or punishment when you're angry. Never do that, because you're not going to manage to be just. Children become angry, you just turn around and smack the lighting. Why? Because you're angry. But does the behavior validate a smack? Or does that behavior need a physical punishment? Or was it possible to sit down and rationalize with a child? And like I always say, our children are smarter than we think. Hey, I mean, I've got a 10-year-old daughter. If you sit down and you speak to her and explain to her why you are upset, why what she's done is wrong, they'll say sorry. They'll realize, because they're more intelligent than we think. Very seldom, I think, you get these really obstinate, hard-headed, strong-willed children who are not interested. Very seldom. And it's also about the example that they see in the house. So if we are accustomed to discuss things in the home, and the husband and wife speak to each other respectfully, and you know what, with respect, I disagree with you, we can discuss it later. The children, we tried this, like I said, I mentioned this before, we tried this with my eldest daughter when she was small. Yes, she was difficult. So, jumping on the bed, go and take her off the bed and put her down. Now listen to me, please. I understand that you're a small child, and I understand that you like to jump on the bed and you like to have fun. But it is very dangerous for you to jump on the bed, and therefore, please, I'm asking you not to jump on the bed. You can get hurt, and that's going to be a bigger problem. So please go and play outside. We would discuss things like this with her. I understand that you like to play with your Legos, but we've asked you before not to play Legos in the lounge, because now I've stepped on your Lego and my toe is sore. Legos hurt. So please, in future, go and play in your room, pack up your Legos now. Then they pack up the Legos reluctantly and they go play in their room. But it got to a point where she would come and she would be like, Dad, I understand that you're tired and you'd like to sleep now, but I would really like a cup of tea. Could you please, you understand? How can you say no? How could you say no when they're speaking to you so respectfully? But it's because of the tone that you set and the example you set for them. So, to be just, never dish out a punishment or issue a verdict when you are angry. In fact, even in Kitab al-Qada, the book of being a Muslim judge in an Islamic court, right? Even then, they tell you straight, if you're angry, don't issue a verdict. Never issue a verdict when you're angry, because you're not going to maintain justice, right? This is why even the hadith says, قُلِ الْحَقَّ وَلَوْ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَوْ كَمَا قَالَ عَلَيْهِ الصَّلَاةُ وَالسَّلَامُ. You speak the truth. Tell the truth, even though you may be speaking against yourself. It's the truth. I also give this lesson to everybody. I even discuss it with my 10-year-old daughter. Like I said, they're smarter than you think. When I asked her again, what did I tell you about honesty and truthfulness? She rattled the whole thing off to me. Honesty is good. Honesty is very good. But what we want to achieve is truthfulness. Honesty, even if you did something wrong, you're going to own up to it, you're going to tell the truth. But truthfulness, you don't do stuff that you have to cover up for. You don't put yourself in a position that your integrity is going to be compromised. So this is what we want to achieve. Truthfulness, not honesty only. All right? Now, number 61 for today's lesson. Not to initiate a way that is contrary to the generality of the Muslims. In other words, not to break the consensus of the ummah or to go against the ummah. Remember, there's a hadith, man shadda shadda fin nar. If you are the only one swimming upstream, you're going to be swimming upstream in Jahannam too, by yourself, right? So if you want to be a lone ranger, you're going to be sitting alone in Jahannam too. That's basically what the hadith means. So if the entire ummah has accepted and adopted a specific practice or a specific theme or a specific dress code, we should avoid contradicting that, going against that, right? In terms of aqidah, in terms of Islamic practice, in terms of dress, in terms of things, right? It's very, very important. I'll give you a simple example. Everybody knows the Muslim greeting is Assalamu alaikum. Okay? Now, because we saw on the Turkish series Ertugrullah, however you want to pronounce it, they say Salamun alaik, Now everybody goes, Salamun alayk. Now you might be imitating, but you are going against what is generally accepted, the sunnah practice. Don't do things like that. Assalamu alaikum, and you shake. Now, for instance, if they shake like this, I'm not saying they do, but you put your hands like this and you shake on the wrist, like they must just be different in the movies, right? So shake like this. Now, if everybody starts shaking like that, brother, you are going against what has been taught to us in the sunnah. Don't go against the sunnah. It's been taught to us for a reason. Don't go against the generalities of the ummah, because it has become a common practice in the ummah for a reason, right? So it's called ijma'. So once the ummah has already agreed on something being an acceptable normal practice, to now go against it is wrong. For example, 20 rakats of taraweeh. Now you're going to start saying, no, 8 rakats. We call them the 8 loopers. Number 8, loopers, because they walk out after 8. You are going against ijma'. 1400 years of the Muslim Ummah has been reading 20 rakats of Salah, of Taraweeh. Now to come with the story, no, it's actually 8. Oh, so 1400 years Muslims didn't understand. Only you now have come along and finally cracked this conundrum that it's 8 rakats. No, man. Second adhan on Jum'ah, which actually is the first one that we hear, was started by Uthman. Now to say, no, it wasn't in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we're only going to give the adhan in front of the minbar on the day of Jum'ah. You are breaking ijma', because it's ijma' of the ummah that there's 2 adhans on Jum'ah for the last 1400 and some odd 20 years. So these kind of things, don't break the consensus of the ummah. If it has become an accepted practice in the Muslim ummah, then we should adhere to that. Yes, there is always room for us to have, for interpretation, there's always room for us to have our own views and opinions, provided those views and opinions are authentic and they are substantiated from authentic sources of Sharia. So, but that must be done respectfully. That must be done respectfully. Not go off on a tangent that whoever doesn't accept your view is a munafiq, kafir, shaitan, harami, atheist, reading kafir, salah. No, not like that. Everybody's entitled to their view as much as you're entitled to your view. I'm also entitled to my view. As much as you expect me to respect your view and your decision as to what you prefer to follow, then you should also respect my decision and what I prefer to follow. And that applies to everybody. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us tawfiq and understanding. Whatever I've said that is correct is only from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the barakah of His Rasul, and the great benefit I've derived from my teachers. And whatever I've said that is wrong is only from my nafs and shaitan and me falling prey to his whisperings. And Allah and His Rasul are absolved of that completely. Jazakumullahu khaira. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.